Trump's trade war is heating up. The Canadian province of Ontario says it will slap a 25% surcharge on electricity exported to the U.S.
Canada is no longer going to stay silent. The conflict, long hidden under the veil of friendship and special relations with the United States, is entering an open phase. Prime Minister Mark Carney, a new political player who, it seems, has not come to negotiate but to dictate terms. Against the backdrop of threatening tariffs from the Trump administration, Ottawa is making a move that could overturn the entire energy and trade map of North America. The province of Ontario, one of the largest suppliers of electricity to the United States, announced the introduction of a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to its southern neighbor. Moreover, the head of the province, Doug Ford, directly threatened to cut off electricity supply if economic pressure from Washington continues. This statement came like a bolt from the blue. From now on, Canadian energy is not just a commodity, it is a political weapon. Canada has long been a reliable partner of the United States. Its natural resources, including oil, gas, and hydropower, have provided stability to the American economy. In 2024, Canadian oil exports to the United States reached $70 billion, accounting for nearly one-fifth of all American oil imports. Approximately 9 billion cubic meters of LNG cross the border annually, and that's just gas. Electricity? Nearly 65 terawatt-hours were delivered to the United States just last year, which is 20% of consumption in some northern states. Now, Ottawa clearly states these supplies are not an obligation, but a gesture of goodwill. And if the United States continues to impose unilateral tariffs, Canada reserves the right to use its energy leverage. This interdependence is too complex to play a one-sided game, declared Mark Carney on March 27, 2025, in Parliament, effectively signaling that the era of unconditional support for the United States has ended. And this is just the beginning. In addition to the energy sector, Canada is preparing retaliatory steps in the automotive industry. In 2024 alone, the volume of auto parts and vehicle exports to the United States exceeded $30 billion. However, Carney has now announced the rollback of tax incentives for American automakers and the possible introduction of additional tariffs. Giants such as Tesla could be affected. A sentiment spreading on social media says, if Ottawa imposes duties on auto parts imports, factories in Detroit will shut down. Agriculture is another zone of potential conflict. Mutual trade between the two countries is estimated at $45 billion, especially in segments like wheat, canola, meat, and dairy products. Canadian canola exports to the United States alone amounted to $6 billion in 2024. The cessation of these supplies or the imposition of tariffs could trigger price increases in American supermarkets and hit the livestock sector hard. U.S. agricultural lobbyists have already raised the alarm, fearing that a breakdown in supply chains will lead to food inflation. Carney, however, puts it simply, we are not obliged to pay for someone else's political ambitions. Public support for his position in Canada is enormous. More than $900 billion was the volume of bilateral trade with the United States in 2024, one of the largest in the world. But today's developments show just how fragile this great partnership can be. In response to the sharp tightening of U.S. policy, Canada is stepping up contacts with Europe and Asia. During visits to France and the United Kingdom, the Prime Minister discussed alternative trade routes. European media are already asking the question, is Canada stepping out of the shadow of the United States? Carney did not deny it. We are developing our own policy, seeking new horizons. Among the measures being discussed are the introduction of tariffs on metals, agricultural products, and auto components, as well as the reorientation of energy flows. One senior official stated, we are considering all directions because we no longer trust anyone. The question that is growing louder, will Canada really cut off electricity to the United States? The price of the matter, more than $3 billion per year. Given the dependence of northern states on Canadian electricity, the consequences could be catastrophic. American energy officials have already stated This is a blow not only to us, but also to Canadian business. As of March 30th, 2025, the sanctions that Canada calls the April 2nd response are still under discussion, but leaks from Ottawa indicate everything is moving toward real action. First and foremost, in energy, the automotive sector, and agriculture. Within the United States, voices of discontent are growing louder. Why has the Trump administration put the country's strategic interests at risk? Opponents of the president argue that it was a serious mistake to anger Canada. But Washington is not backing down yet. In response to Ottawa's tough rhetoric, the White House declared, "We are considering all measures against unfair practices." And yet, Prime Minister Carney is not closing the door to negotiations. "I am always open to dialogue, but not to ultimatums," he emphasized on March 27th. However, the history of relations between the two countries knows many crises that have temporarily paralyzed entire industries. Perhaps we are standing on the threshold of a new economic era for North America. If the United States continues on a path of protectionism, the trade war could spread to other countries as well, including Mexico. Meanwhile, global markets are holding their breath in anticipation. What measures will be introduced after April 2nd? How will Washington respond? And will diplomacy be able to stop this train rushing toward a full-scale conflict? But as Carney said, nothing is off the table. And now all attention turns to the next move on the chessboard of North American politics.